Episode 8, right? I think we have it this time.
8,
Episode 8. We have Mike Guido, the creator, founder of the Paper Bag.
Hello.
Is that your best title you ever had, or what?
Well, it's one of them. I'll take that one.
World famous on Long Island.
Also namesake
world
of
famous
the...
on Long Island. World famous among the 1,000 people that show up every week,
Every year.
namesake of the Mike Guido stage door at Mulcahy's
Well,
as
yeah.
well.
We have the
Stage door.
stage door.
Forget.
That's true. The stage door has been defaced with my picture in
I
my
like it.
honor.
And you're the only Long Islander. Oh, no, that's not true. But you're the only fake face on the big mural downstairs, too.
Yes.
The
You
dizzy
know,
face.
That went up the first year we were here, 25 years ago. Somebody cut my face out and stuck it up there in a spot. I think it's over Paul McCartney's shoulder.
Yeah,
And I think the guy who painted the mural saw it and got a little upset.
probably.
And I think someone who might have just left the room told him, "Well, we bought it, we own it."
Yeah, well, I don't even know who painted it. It was before my time.
But it was not before mine, though. And it has fallen down. The tape has worn out, and it's fallen down once or twice and been replaced.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know that, the huge mural that we have downstairs in the concert area of Moles, Mike is the infamous sticker over Paul McCartney.
Well, it's all rock stars,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
much from the 70s and the 80s, and I'm all right over Paul McCartney's
You
shoulder.
are a rock star. Bands come here and they're like, oh, there's, Billy Joel, blah, blah, blah. Like, who's the guy with the squiggly eyes? I'm like, it's a long story. You'll figure it out.
Who did that drawing? Was it one of yours? Or?
A girl drew that probably it was before the Paper Bag started as this. It used to be just a song. And I was playing Chelsea's in Huntington. And some girl came in and she had drawn this picture of me. And then she actually made a poster, not a poster, a backdrop, a banner out of cloth. And she used the font Cooper Black for the words Paper Bag.
Mhm.
Right.
And she drew my face with the squirrely eyes. And so because we had the banner, it kind of stuck. And it does, represent exactly what it's supposed to represent.
Yeah,
like
it's
it.
iconic.
My hair has always been kind of long, and my eyes have always been kind of squirrely. So.
So we're talking about the Paper Bag. We'll get into more detail as we go along, but how would you describe what the Paper Bag is in a couple sentences?
The Paper Bag, I can describe it very accurate. Well, Ed Lowe described it. Ed Lowe was a writer for Newsday who used to hang out here, among other gin mills. And he described it as once a year, 70 musicians gather for a show of virtually unrehearsed music in front of 1,000 recidivist fans who, for 6 hours, sing and play and stomp and shout. And the band doesn't get paid. They get Budweiser
Yeah.
and hamburgers, chicken sandwiches. And this will be our 43rd performance, 43 years. This year would have been our 43rd year. Of course, we got COVIDed out,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
next year we're going to have the double bag.
Double bag?
Right here,
Nice.
right
Nice.
downstairs.
That's when you know it's a real world pandemic. Shit's going wrong when the Paper Bag gets canceled.
Listen, I'm almost 70 years old. I never heard the words Europe is closed. It's just bizarre. So you just have to ride it out.
Well, that's why we're doing this, for all the
Yeah,
Paper
exactly.
Bag fans out there who didn't get to go to the show.
Exactamundo.
Now we're getting the history of the Paper Bag, so you'll be geared up for next year, I think. So whose idea was it?
Well, I was in 1973, I think. I was in a band called the Phil Gagliano Band, which was named after a baseball player who was a utility player for the Phillies and the Reds. But there was a radio personality for, I forget this, WABC maybe, and he always used to tell these ridiculous stories. And he was reading the sports report one day, and it said Phil Gagliano. He was like, Phil Gagliano, that's a great name. Somebody should name a band Phil Gagliano. So as a matter of fact, if I ever hear of a band named Phil Gagliano, I'll play all their records, no matter what. So then we couldn't figure out a name. Because every time we tried to figure out a name, we'd be sitting around there, Dumbo, and we'd always laugh, So then the next day, we were the Phil Gagliano Band.
Yeah.
Of course, he never put us on his radio show.
What the hell?
But we used to go to, in Uniondale, there was a place called the Mini Cinema. And this was, like I say, the early 70s. And so there was a late Saturday night, midnight movies. And it would play to the stoners,
Yeah.
more or less. And they'd have, Rocky Horror and stuff like that. And they played a movie called Pink Flamingos, which is the story of a woman named Divine. Well, he's a man. He's a 300-pound transvestite. And the premise of the movie was a race to see who could be the most disgusting person alive. And I'll leave that part out. You can find the movie, and you'll be amused. And on the way, the band we piled into somebody's Nash Rambler to go. There's all 6 of us in this little car. And on the way home, it's really cloudy in the van. And the drummer says, "You remember that scene where they chopped up the cops with machetes?" So he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Remember the music?" And we said, "No." Yeah. He said, "That was really Paper Bag, that music." And we laughed. And the next day at band rehearsal, he brings down the song that he wrote. And it has the dumb, da-da-da-da, da-da, and it's got, when I was younger, there was my mother. My mother always told me I could be really big. She said, "You got to take a stand. You got to be a man." My mother always told me, "You can't be no brown paper bag." And it was paper bag, what a drag.
Yeah.
So he got this song. So we would play it and in our little private performances in the basement, because we didn't really play at bars or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we did, but that was a different debacle. And then I used to do sound for a festival upstate, on private land for people, a family in Huntington. It was maybe 1,000 people would show up. And I was always in a band, so my band always got to play. And then in 1979, I wasn't in a band, so I got the idea that on the last night, I'll have everybody in my band.
Everyone.
So I got there were like 18 musicians, and we played for about an hour. I have a little cassette, so one side of a cassette tape, 45 minutes, and it was 5 songs, and it was just nuts. And I was the sound engineer at the Silver Dollar Saloon in Bayshore at the time. So when we got home, we said, "Let's do that again."
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of weeks later, that was on 4th of July, actually, the first one. And so at the end of July, we did it again in the Silver Dollar Saloon. And then we just started doing it once a year after that.
So Silver Dollar Saloon, that was the first.
That was, yeah. So the Upstate, Whitehall was number 1. The Silver Dollar Saloon was number 2, both in 1979. And then we've done it once a year since then.
Mike, how did it turn into the last Tuesday in June?
Well, it was originally in July, right? And then the first here, if I go to my nifty difty website, I have a thing that tells me.
You
so
do have an amazing website.
It just seemed to be on Tuesdays. Oh, we picked that actually because it was Musicians' Night Off.
Yeah. Right.
And also because the venue doesn't have anything booked.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? And all of my friends, everybody who participated, they were all in working bands. So that's how we hit on Tuesday. And then it just kind of got to the last Tuesday in June. I see there was one was June 23rd, so that means that was really early. And then we did that until Paper Bag number 25. We were here by then. Paper Bag number 18, 1995 is when we moved to Mulcahy's, and we've never left.
The 18th one?
Number 18.
Yeah. What year?
1995.
And who was responsible for that?
Well, we were, in the beginning, we were at the Silver Dollar, and then the next year he put a mechanical bull in the Silver Dollar, and he cordoned off a huge part of the club, and he wouldn't let me put people there. So I said, "Well, no, I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
So I found a club in Huntington, the Lion's Cage. We did it 2 years there, and then he talked me back into the Silver Dollar, and then the Silver Dollar closed, so we had to move. So I went on the lookout, and we ended up in Spit. I went scouting out clubs. It's Spit in Levittown,
Right.
which was really a discotheque, but it was run by these 3 gangsters.
Really?
The Passionis. Mikey, Tony, and Vinny, I think. One of them was a cop. And so we lasted 2 years there, and they closed.
Yeah.
So then I came here, actually, to Mulcahy's, and I looked, but it was still only half of the original room.
Yeah.
It was still only that wide, and then the stage was at the end, so we couldn't fit enough people.
Mm-hmm.
So then I ended up in a place that used to be the Action House in Island Park, and it was called Paradise at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there for 2 years, and they closed. So it seemed like 2 years we sucked the life
Maybe you're the
out of
bad
these
luck.
places.
Yeah.
Bad luck.
So we ended up in the Salty Dog in Huntington for 1 year. then 2 years. Then we went to Sundance.
Oh yeah, I
in
heard about that
Bayshore.
place. Yeah.
They closed, and Spit they closed, and Paradise they
I'm
closed.
so surprised Mulcahy's didn't close right
Well,
after.
yeah, that's what I mean. Well, I warned him. I warned your dad when I got here. I said, for 10 years we've been on the 2-year plan, and we just never left.
So it was meant to be then.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
those places were closing for a reason.
And
But
how many-
and so I'm completely loyal.
Yeah.
So, that's all there is to it. But we get to the 25th bag, and now these guys, they're rumbling, and this is 2002, so it's 18 years ago. So,
Yeah.
like me and my friends were all like 40s and 50s, and instead of 60s and 70s or whatever we are. So they wanted to do it on a Saturday night. So I said, all right, I don't really want to do it because like the paper bag to me is like a pyramid on its point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's balanced there. And it's been like that for
Yeah.
40-something years. And I'm afraid if I touch it, it's going to fall.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't ever want to mess with it. But I have this executive board of 15 guys that gather in the war room in my basement.
Yeah.
We have these meetings that are hysterical. So there's a lot of pressure. We want to try Saturday night. And they're saying, well, I said, well, but it might not work from, okay. So they told me there was the, was it called the Vanderbilt? The place right on the expressway at Round Swamp Road. And now it's a racing palace.
Uh-huh.
There's a big, but that was owned by another group of gangsters, the Huntington gangsters this time.
Did they ever fight the Levittown guys?
No, they didn't. They were two separate groups of gangsters. So they said, well, we can do it there because some of the people involved with the paper bag work there.
Mm-hmm.
So all right, so I figure I'll do my due diligence, and I go meet these people. So then they're talking and you don't really understand the paper bag. Nobody can explain it to you.
Yeah.
You have to really go there.
This pulls out, Mike, too, if you want to.
Oh well,
There you go.
you have to really
That's
go
one.
there to
Yeah.
be there. And I have a discussion with these people, and so then it's a big room. That's all going to work. And then he tells me, well, I have a security cost, and he wants me to pick up part of his security costs.
Yeah.
So I say to myself, well, John Murray, I'm sure they have security costs, but I don't recall anybody ever bringing it up to me. Then he tells me, well, my how many people do you think you're going to draw? He says, my fire department number is whatever it is.
Yeah.
So for every person over that, I'm taking a risk, he's telling me. So he more or less wants now points
Yeah.
if we go over. So I'm just like, get out of here.
Yeah,
So
fuck
I
off.
said, yeah. Then I come back to talk to this brain trust here.
Yeah.
So I think your father's there, and Mike McElway, and there was another manager.
Kenny?
I forget who
Kenny
it was. But
Tobin?
Kenny Tobin.
Yeah.
And so John, so I said, well, we want to try it on a Saturday and then go back just because it's the 25th one.
Yeah.
Big yayas, we'll go back. And so Kenny really doesn't say anything, but Mike lays out in detail exactly why it's a bad idea. So they're just ramping up for summer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You take away this, you close this place to all of their customers. And the weeds was just starting out then, and it was a big, huge thing. And that it would take us into the middle of July to get back where we were.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with him 100%. So he goes through this whole thing, and then the big red-headed guy sits there, scratches his head with a pencil,
Yeah.
and he says, well, we're going to do whatever we need to do to keep the bag here. So I said, all right, since you're willing to ruin your business to accommodate me, I'm unwilling to make you do that.
Yeah.
So we're going to stay on Tuesday just like we always. We ended up on a Thursday that year because the last day of school was like Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so if Tuesday's the paper bag, I was a school teacher. And I would be in the corner of the room in the fetal position, and they would have to tell the kids, don't step on Mr. Guido
Yeah.
and ignore that smell. You know what I mean? So we ended up doing Thursday a couple of years.
Yeah.
But he was willing to accommodate me, and so I was unwilling to
Nice.
make him do that. It just didn't make any sense to me.
And all the famous Long Island bands, like everyone's in it. Obviously, like famous musicians around here, like Linda and Ricky Roach, and guys in RPM, Pete Moss, right? Everyone's in it. How does someone join the paper bag, or how do you take in new members?
Well,
or-
we used to just. It was my friends, and then people, if somebody expressed interest, we had a rule: you had to go see it first, because again, you can't explain it to anybody, and then you had to be somebody I know, more or less, because it's
Someone you
easy.
like.
Because I really, I'm a little verbally abusive to the musicians
Yeah.
at times. It was great practice to become a middle school teacher, and being a middle school band teacher was great practice for being the paper because
Mhm.
it's the same. They're 12.
Yeah.
They act like 12-year-olds, and so if I'm gonna, and I can't really think about things. I just have to go.
Yeah.
So I'm in the bubble, pretty much. I'm not weighing the consequences of my actions. And so it's hard to do that to people that you don't know. I can abuse my friends and they're happy. They're
Yeah, of
thrilled.
course.
It's like a badge of honor for them.
Mhm.
And later they say, you were a real idiot before. That's, thank you. But so now it got to a point, I don't know how many years ago, where the stage is just too crowded.
Yeah. 70
And-
piece at least.
Well, yeah,
right?
we've already built out the stage at
Yeah.
Mulcahy's 8 feet, 12 feet, so we've already encroached on the audience as it is. So we had to make a rule that somebody has to vacate a spot for somebody else to get in.
Yeah.
So that kind of works,
Mhm.
and at least it gives me an excuse when I have to tell somebody no.
Yeah.
But when there's somebody like Mike Barbrick who was in 45 RPM, now he's
Uh-huh.
in some other different bands. He finally came up to, he'd been coming for years, and he definitely deserves a spot.
Yeah.
And he finally told me, if I don't get in next year, I'm not coming anymore. So we just made space
You might
for
have to
him.
give him a spot.
It's not an easy thing to get to do. And, like I said, we have I can tell you exactly what we have. This year was 43. And instruments. We have 7 cheese calzones, who are girl singers. 20 guitar players. 20 vocalists, I'm sorry. 16 guitars, 5 keyboards, a 9-piece horn section, 3-piece harmonica section,
Wow.
7 basses, 15 percussionists.
It's crazy. It takes them a whole day to set up. They come here on Monday.
Well, yeah, we come a day early, and like we rehearse, but the point wasn't for a rehearsal. The point was just to give them a really good sound check.
Yeah.
So we used the time to rehearse. And then the day of the show, we actually come in and we start at 7 o'clock and rehearse for 2 hours.
Mhm.
Then we close, they open the house, and we start at 10 o'clock and play till 4 o'clock in the morning. So we actually play from 7 till 4 in the morning with a 1-hour break. There's no
Yeah.
break, no stopping in between songs, no stopping for anything, ever.
It's a real love-hate relationship for the people at Mulcahy's and the bartenders.
Oh,
I
yeah,
would say.
absolutely. And
I've worked
perfectly
in, it's like,
understood.
what is it, 9 hours to
Well,
4
yeah,
in the
we,
morning?
We
and
play for 6 straight hours,
Yeah.
and with that, like I said, we're off from 9 to 10, but it's 9 hours from when,
Yeah.
and it can, and the last couple hours I look and I see the bartenders are just standing looking at
It
me,
is a long
because
shift.
it does get, we start with 1,400 people in the place,
yeah,
but
yeah. It's good money for us, though, so don't
yeah,
worry
yeah, no,
about it. For the bartenders, I mean.
That's there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure they had a good night earlier in the night,
Yeah, yeah.
and I know my friends tip,
yeah, yeah.
you
guys
and there's
always do.
1,400 of my friends out there.
And you probably get high just working that night.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure they do. Well, then you have the cops, the police,
Yeah.
the fire department, the police pipe and drum band.
Yeah.
They've been performing here for the last 15 or so years.
Everyone's in it.
And, like out by Mulcahy's is nice enough to set up, a guy cooking hamburgers and
The
sandwiches.
tent,
We
yeah.
have our own bar outside. Leah's usually out there
Mhm.
lately. So they're really nice to us, but it's kind of like a free range area between there and the parking lot, as
Yeah.
much as we try to control it.
It's a party back
So
there.
you have guys going in and out, and girls going in and out, and a lot of them have been musicians working since the 60s, and they lived through the 80s when things were a little different.
Yeah.
So I'd be standing there talking to a couple of cops, and these guys would come by sniffling and wiping their nose, and the cops just look over and they look at me and they say, "We're off tonight."
Yeah, they're not working.
They're not working. And also I know that Mulcahy's takes really good care of them. They come up, they're up here eating the dinner and
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
before. The
It's
whole
a
thing
loving
is
event,
bizarre.
though, so
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
there's
it's
no
like
bullshit.
nothing
Yeah.
else.
It's
Yeah,
bizarre.
for
It's
sure.
a zero balance.
Yeah. It's like Woodstock.
Of course, yeah,
A
well,
little
Yeah.
yeah, but in a small way. I pretty much I get the door, you guys get the bar,
Yeah.
so that's easy, and it's cost about $14,000 to put on the show, and
Wow, yeah.
the
Yeah, your
income
rent,
is about
light.
$14,000.
Mm.
I usually have a couple $100 left over, so I buy a hard drive to store the movie on,
Yeah.
and that's that, because I'm not paying anybody, so I
Mhm.
can't really make money.
Yeah.
And we hardly raise the ticket prices much.
Yeah. It's fun.
only when necessary.
I think you. I
It's
always said to
definitely
you.
more love than hate.
Yeah.
It's a long shift, but it is like
It's
nothing
worth it.
oh,
else.
it's
you
got
know.
to be.
And when you tell people are like, "How was work last night?" and you're like, "Oh, there was a 70-piece rock band."
And the lady on
and
stilts.
they're getting pounded with brutal music all night long.
Yeah.
I understand. They used to be, until one year I looked at the movie and I said, there's a security guy, like the front camera is on the stage.
Yeah.
And right in front of the stage, there's a guy standing on a box with his back to the stage. And he's got his headphones on and everything. And he's standing there, but he's just miserable because it's 70 people on that stage. It's just absolutely miserable. And we've never had an incident ever at the paper. Once in the early 80s at Rum Runners, somebody hit on a biker's girlfriend and he got punched in the nose.
That's
But
nothing.
that was it.
Yeah.
So I said, finally I realized, tell you guys, you really don't need
Security.
to torture some poor guy
Yeah.
down in front of the stage. You need somebody at the door
Yeah.
letting him back. But we have to adjust.
So, Mike, we're just on your website there. And
Yes.
It's Paperbag Music.
Yeah, the website is paperbagmusic.com.
And if you haven't been on it, it is an amazing archive. Like, you've got everything on there. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I made it myself in the middle of the night
it really
over
is.
years and years.
Usually, I'm trying to do research for the podcast, and like I started on paperbagmusic.com, and it's awesome.
Yeah, you
like,
can get lost in it. There's like
definitely.
1,500
all the
pages.
stories, all the pictures is amazing. Even the old like the hand drawn flyers and everything.
Mhm.
Have you always been that meticulous? Is that just part of who you are?
I always, even before I had computers, I had ledger books.
Right.
And for some reason, even I remember when I was a kid, I stole a grade book out of a teacher's desk, an empty grade book. It was
Nice.
so cool. And I remember for the longest time I had it, but I wouldn't write anything in it because I wasn't sure what I wanted to keep track of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then, so then I like doing crossword puzzles. I like filling out little boxes. So I always had ledger books when I was played in bands. Played in bands for 20 years. The Jim Small band we played here. But it was, when you get your thing for Social Security, your quarterly thing, and mine shows up in like 1967 and it goes, and like 1973 it goes down. And for 20 years it's, and then I became a teacher and boy. But for all those years, I kept track of what I made.
Yeah.
And I just have always done that. So then when these things came along, well, actually they were big boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just I have this database there. There have been 939 people in the paper. Well, we can find Tim Murray. We can find Tim Murray's.
900 people?
900 total from the beginning.
Yeah, I got a shirt this year. This was the first time I got a shirt last year.
Actually, because your shirt was stolen by somebody, because it's the second time you should have got a shirt. So
Maybe
they got
Alan.
in paper bag 41. They got you a Prince Timmy,
Prince Timmy, that's
and
my
then
name.
in paper bag 42, you got a Prince Timmy, and your dad. Let's see. Oh, let's
I
put
love
it.
this.
Well, in the beginning, it was your dad, Kenny Tobin, McGorry, and Mike McElway. Those were the ones that got shirts in the beginning.
We got to get Ruby a shirt.
I didn't work at this last year. I missed that.
No shirt for you.
I know.
I think he's Johnny Cash you got back there.
Oh yeah, he's Johnny Cash. Then one year he was Binky, probably because it was probably it was a baby.
Yeah.
1998.
Wow.
Then he was New Cash, then just Cash. Then he was JMJR, then Cash, then Murray, and now he's been Johnny Cash for the last
I like
11 years.
Yeah,
or
everyone's
so.
in the bag, gets a matching shirt.
Yeah, everybody
Usually
get-
a nice
Well,
bright.
that's your backstage pass.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
shirt.
Talk us through that, like the preparing for a paper bag. You mentioned about your war room and stuff. How long does it take usually for you guys to like come up with a theme and then? 'Cause
Well,
it
that's
switches
a
every
really
year.
good quote. We have a method. I mean, it's more or less because we've been doing this for 43 years, and I'm always like efficiency and method oriented. But in January, there's an executive board. There's the lead guy, the guys who have been in the guitar players the longest, 2 guitars, 2 basses, 2 of each section, and we meet in my basement. And we've been friends for 40 years, most of us. So the meetings are really funny. And so we start the first meeting in January. So you get 6 months to,
Nice.
and usually Martin Luther King Day, and this is a day off. So we have our first meeting to decide what to do. And then we have a meeting once a month. At the February meeting, then we can decide what to do.
It takes that.
Then at the March meeting, so the February meeting, we kind of come up with a theme.
Yeah.
Right.
In the March meeting, we come up with a song list. Then in April, we show the movie from last year, and that's when I hand out envelopes. Everybody involved in the paper bag is required to sell 2 tickets.
Right.
And there's 300 people that get a shirt,
Nice.
2 tickets. So if you can't generate 2 paying customers, and that's kind of what keeps us afloat,
Yeah.
because I know I have that coming, and then I get the door money, and actually then I come during the summer, and I get advanced sales from OK's, and I pay for the beer,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we have the little trade-off.
That's a good system, though. That
Well,
keeps people.
it's and then somebody, a man with red hair who's 4 years younger than I am, when the number doesn't come out the way he likes it, he goes, ah, and he looks at it and he crosses it out, and he does a little math again.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'll cross it out again, and he'll say, "What do we pay for this?" And he cross it out again, so that it comes out to like exactly the same thing every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, everybody, like the guy that I get the shirts from is what was it? Oh, Goldman Brothers, and he's got a little shop right
Uh-huh.
around the corner, and the price hasn't changed, and it cost me around $3,000 for like 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
I get trophy plaques from a guy. The price hasn't changed in 30 years. It's
There you
just
go.
everybody takes care of me, so I don't have to raise the rates.
I imagine this will be a bit of a tough question, but over the years, has there been any like one favourite theme for you, or any that jump out as just kind of a really memorable? You
No,
personally love that theme.
Like no, it's all. We have videotapes from Paper Bag 5 on, I think.
Wow.
And some of them there's multiple camera, and it's all different, but it's all really exactly the same.
Right.
You know? Even like I have the little cassette tape from the very first time we did this, when it wasn't an idea like this. It was just at the end of a 4-day festival in the woods, all the musicians get on stage for an hour, and we just played this mess. And the first thing you can hear when you turn on the tape is me going, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. And I do that all the time, so
Yeah.
I get everybody's
Yeah.
attention.
All right.
And I
all
do
right.
that now 40 years later.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. So it's just the way that the most impressive thing to me is you have very highly professional musicians.
Yeah.
People who are like famous in Europe and Japan and sort of here. And you have amateurs, complete amateurs who somehow, because they're nice people and whatever it is they got their way up there. But everybody takes care of everybody else, and there's not a single, nobody's getting on anybody for their lack of a good performance. And the people that aren't real polished and professional musicians are supported by the other people. That's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you, there's dozens of people that their email name is something to Paper Bag, and
Mhm.
it's just really important to them.
I like too. You see the same customers year after year after
Well, yeah,
year.
because we don't advertise.
Yeah, but they love it. Like they come every single year. It's the same people.
Our advertising budget is
0.
Z.
Yeah.
We did a radio commercial once when Kenny Tobin was here. We went up the street
Yeah.
into somebody's basement. I think it might have been Paper Bag 30 or something. That was pretty amusing. But we don't advertise. So you have the 300 people who wear shirts.
Yeah.
So they have 2 tickets each. So that's 2 friends of theirs.
Yeah.
And then if you get 2 friends of theirs, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
What was the radio commercial? Like, where'd you begin describing?
Well, one of the guys in the bag, his name is Scotto Savitt. He's a big, huge guy. He sings one crazy song.
Oh yeah,
every
he's
year.
huge.
And he's just big, and he's got a big head, and he wears all black, and he's just crazy. So I called him. I said, well, Mulcahy's wants to do a radio commercial. I want you to help me. Write me a script. He says, all right, I got you. I got this covered. So we show up, and we went to the basement. It was in the basement of a bar right up the road. And so I said, okay, where's the script? He says, we don't need a script. And he said, write down what the important. So I wrote down date, time, all the who, what, when, where, why,
Yeah.
all the things. He said, what I want you to do is just, give one of these facts, and then I'll take care of the rest, and then you give another fact.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, all right. And we're in the room where the studio is, like there's a glass partition in the wall where the sound booth is.
Yeah.
And that's where Kenny and the engineers are. And I'm in the room with Big Scotto. And I'm standing about where this camera is facing the wall. And it's a big room, and he's behind me in the room. So they played the music then. And I said, how you doing, everybody? I'm Mike Guido. And I hear him saying, I'm Scotto. And then I have my thing, and I have to watch the clock also, because it was 30 seconds or a minute. So I'm watching. I said, and it's the paper bag. And as I look and I see the people in the booth, they're like, and I'm looking, and I finally sneak, and he's running around in the circles. I tell you, he's a big.
He looks like Hagrid. He's
and
huge.
He's leaping. He's doing leaping through. And we hit our 30, like we nailed it in one take. But I have it someplace in my computer. I could play it for you.
Oh, we gotta find it.
It's just hysterical. It's.
But also the first and last commercial you did.
Well, yeah. Well, it just. Only because Mulcahy suggested it.
Yeah. That sounds like us.
Ken Tobin. I mean, Ken Tobin really liked the paper bag. The first time
he
we
said
were
that's
here,
his most proud thing he ever.
well, he changed. He told me that they made the room bigger,
Yeah.
so that we can have the paper bag here.
Yeah.
And the first year we were here, he was hanging around the whole time, the whole 2 days setup. And at that time, we built. I actually had guys. I designed trusses, and we had guys build the stage extensions, and they built the sound booth.
Yeah.
So we had carpenters in here all day Monday. And I walk up to him, and somebody just asked me something. So I said, "You got a C-clamp?" And he reaches in his pocket, and he hands me a 6-inch C-clamp. It was like, what? You know, stuff. But he's the one that...
really blew it up.
Let's see. He liked it. He was a paper bag. Commercial. Where's...
I love you got all the files and everything.
Oh, I have so much stuff.
We can watch it after. You don't have to check. What do you think is the biggest? There you go.
It's not a watch. It's a sound.
It's a listen.
That's right. It's the Paper Bag, the world's only 60-piece rock band.
That was great.
It just went. I mean,
That's exactly how you described it.
That's exactly, and it was just mayhem. But we hit our 30-second mark.
And that's it.
One take.
Perfect. What do you think is the biggest challenge of the paper bag?
The biggest. It's really not challenging for me because it's very complicated.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like 70 people. It's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot
70
going on.
people, and then I like I say, I hand out paper. I hand out ticket and 2 tickets to each of 300 people that I have to keep track when that comes back and where all that goes. But I've organized it so well, and I've delegated incredibly well over the years. There are things. There's a girl who makes the signs all over the place.
Yeah.
And I don't say anything to her anymore.
Yeah,
she shows up. She's got the materials. She has the markers. She knows what signs have to be made. She knows what the key. You know, and people have taken on. There's another guy. He's a long haul trucker, Tow Truck Jack. He lives in Pennsylvania now. And every year he comes with the signs that we put up on the walls.
Yeah.
He has them made, and bracelets and stickers and all kinds of cool stuff. You know, he just comes with boxes of stuff, and people have taken on. Tom Russo is my spiritual advisor, which is he's like my, my valet. He's like everything. He takes care of, because I'm not thinking about anything that day. I'm just running. And he'll be motioning to me backstage. Come on, you got to take the shirt off. It's disgusting. But change it, and you do this. And I have somebody. This guy, there's the supervisor of the Hempstead town wants to come up and give you a thing, and he takes care of all of it. And there are people who have stepped out, and the people here.
Yeah.
Like we don't really, we had a meeting about 5 years ago, and I had to bring out my thing, my agreement that we made the years before.
Yeah.
And we looked at it. We said, oh, okay, that's good. But we don't just. Even Tom Heinisch, SK Sound, who does all of the sound here, 1 year, it was probably the second year we were here. The first year we were good. Then I'm on my way here on Monday, the next year, and I realized I never called him. I never spoke to him.
Yeah.
And it's tomorrow. And they got to set up today. And I pull into the parking lot, and there's his truck.
Yeah, he was already set up.
And he was already here.
He loves the bag.
So people just... Because I've delegated well, and people really like it, and they protect it.
Yeah, that's great.
Even like you calling me here to do this is just...
Yeah, I miss it. Everyone misses it. So this is kind of like a business podcast / advice.
Sure.
What advice would you give to someone who's looking to either get into the events business or start events, and how to sustain long-term success with events and draw people?
Like being like what you do?
Kind of like what I do, but anyone wants to get in the event business. Well, you've created a 40-something year long event that sells out every year. What?
Yeah, that's kind of hard to transfer because it is just a unique. I don't think I really believe that there's nothing like this on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're in Russia. They have the Leningrad Cowboys. You look them up on YouTube. It's hysterical. They do rock songs from the 70s and 80s with a huge band, and they have big plastic pompadours and shoes, but they'll have the Red Army chorus and the Red Army orchestra playing with them. But that's different because they have money, and they pay all of these people. But there's really nothing like this where a group of people for 40 years have met once a year and play 6 hours without stopping and without really rehearsing. The singers now rehearse for about a month.
Okay.
Because we wanted the background vocals to be good.
Right.
And it seems so good when you're there, and then you watch the video, and it's like,
Oh, the people there loved it.
oh yeah, but in the house you can't tell. But it's people, and sometimes it's unrehearsed, but it sounds ridiculously great.
Yeah.
Like you listen to it and you say, we have no business sounding this good. That people can work years and years and rehearse and practice, and they can't get this right like this.
Yeah.
Which is a testament to the way my people prepare.
Yeah. Awesome. One couple more. The We Are the World video, the thing during the COVID. Did you orchestrate that?
No, that
was a paper bag stronghold.
That's the brainchild of Adam and Kristen Seeley, who both perform in the paper bag. He's a sax player, she's a vocalist, and they called me up one day and they said, we're doing this project. We're going to make a video of We Are the World. We want you to be the Quincy.
Yeah.
Quincy Jones, Quincy Adams. It's a president. Quincy Jones was John Quincy Adams was the president. Quincy Jones was a highly respected music producer, and he was the conductor on the original. So all right, so in my living room, I set up a big recording microphone to make it look really cool, and my wife's running around with my phone. So I did. So I watched. I saw Quincy Jones. He's cueing people. So I did a couple of shots of that. Then I did it with my dog, holding my dog conducting. And then I told Sue. I told my wife, you sing, and she's singing. She's got her scarf on, and she's singing into the microphone. She doesn't really sing, but so I sent them all to Adam and Kristen, and they used what they put her in it, and they put me in it.
It's a great video. It already has 1.5 million views.
Oh, it's almost at 2 now.
It's crazy.
It's really cool.
But everyone in that video, there's a lot of paper bag members.
There are. Well,
and then you orchestrating it, of course.
Well, yeah, but I really didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of I wasn't conducting anybody. I was in my living room. With my dog.
I'm happy you got
wife.
in there though.
Yeah, well, it is. It's because 2 million people got to see my wife not sing.
Yeah, there you go.
So
we have one more for you. I think Ruby will take it away. Guido Fest.
Guido Fest. So, Mike, with you being obviously very musically inclined and having all these kind of influences, and paper bag is super eclectic. If we had just Guido Fest separate to paper bag, who would be headlining and who would be the opening act? Dead or alive?
Oh, who do I get? I get like any band.
You get a headliner and an opening act, no budget, dead or alive.
Oh, I can have any band I want.
Yeah.
See, this is
and it could be anywhere you want.
It's hard for me not to pick the Beatles because I was 12 years old when they were on Ed Sullivan. And the music, like I used to tell my middle school kids, the music you like when you're in middle school is going to be your favorite music forever. And you're going to think that's the best music ever. It just so happens that me and my cohorts, 12 years old, we were right.
Yeah.
But then now I got, to only pick 2 is a tough thing for me.
Yeah.
Because there's like Frank Zappa is a huge influence on the paper bag because of the zaniness and the craziness, and Allman Brothers is music that I really like to play. So it would be really hard for me to pick a second band. It's just
one of those 3.
Yeah, well, the Beatles just has to be in there.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
I would be remiss. I would be
paper
denying
bag
myself.
could open up for the Beatles, then you know.
Oh yeah, the paper bag could open up for the Beatles.
I don't think the paper bag could open up for anything.
Yeah.
Because the reason we play right till 4:00 is because we went through all the effort to set all that crap up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We spent 2 days setting it up, so we figure we might as well. So we go to actually 4:00 and 30 seconds
On the dot. Yeah.
We go right up to it till the last bartender.
What's the story too? You always walk in your pool after the paper bag?
Oh yeah, I walk in my backyard and just jump in the pool with my clothes on.
Clean.
And also at the very end of the paper bag, when there's few enough people in the audience to fit on the stage, I bring them all up on the stage,
right?
And they just sing "Twist and Shout," "Wooly Bully," and So some audience member stood up on a security box, I think, and sang "Can't You See" last year at the end. And he was kind of awful, but he was really into it, and so was everybody else. So that was fine.
Good for him.
I mean, I remember I looked at him. I could have kicked him off there, but why?
Yeah, let him hang out.
Why bother?
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, anytime. This was fun.
Loved hearing about the bag.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get you on next year, maybe before the bag. If you have like an hour to kill, we'll do a pre.
And
Yeah, we could do that.
How is it going to work next year with a double bag? Is it going to be
Well,
two
we have to
or-
see if the planet opens up again.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's just going to be one paper bag. I mean, you can't really, as it is, it's brutally long.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but it's just 2 years of material, because we
Got
do the
it.
body bag with the musicians who have died during the year,
Yeah.
and which is getting huge. And now we're going to have 2 years worth
Right.
of musicians to
Yeah.
fit into the body bag. So we'll see what happens. But the paper bag relies on density, like extreme density,
Yeah.
and it's extremely non-essential to everybody except for the 1,400 of us.
Yeah.
So we have to wait it out until
We'll get
the
there.
We're
planet comes
counting
back
down the
to us.
days.
Yeah.
We look forward to it.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
I
Thanks
really
so
appreciate
much,
this.
Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Anytime.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for upcoming interviews and much more of the same from Employees Only Podcast.